We are officially live, I believe. So I'm going to tune in here on our page to see if that's the case. Yeah, we are. Oh, there's
awesome.
Good to see us. Yeah, so we do also have about a 8-second to 30-second delay on the live stream. So I would highly advise against you trying to tune into it on our Facebook page right now, because it gets really mentally disruptive. So, but I'm going to tune in just so that I'm able to see when people bring questions to us. And so we'll just wait right now and kind of give people a chance to tune in. I see that we've got four people watching already. Let me use this quick. Yeah, 4 people, 5 people. So again, we'll give them the opportunity throughout our conversation, Brett, to ask questions in the comment section. And then if it's something that pertains to what we're talking about right now, I might interject the question during our conversation. And if it's something that is kind of off topic or just something they're curious about, then maybe at the end we can reserve 5 or 10 minutes to kind of address those questions together and make sure that everyone gets their questions answered. So I'm going to go ahead and type a welcome here to our friends. If you are interested or comfortable, you can go ahead and give just a brief introduction, your name and what it is that you do in our community. And we'll probably go over that again in a couple minutes.
Yeah, that sounds great. So my name is Roes, and I am someone who wears a lot of hats. And I am a parent, as you might be able to hear in the background. I'm a pastor at a United Methodist church here in town. I'm a spouse. I do a lot of writing, both like music and creative nonfiction, spoken word type of stuff. And I really just try to stay connected with all kinds of different folks in Rapid City, because I think our town, though it might be small, has a whole lot to offer. So, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that intro. I'm super excited to have you here with us tonight. I'm Mary Hahn. For those of you who don't know me, I'm often behind the scenes at the Cave Collective. I've been involved there for the past couple years since we launched our downtown location. I serve on the board of directors there, but I am neither musically talented nor artistically talented, so you won't see me on stage at any of our events unless I'm announcing something hesitantly and being forced to do so. So I am Mary. I use she, her pronouns. And again, I represent the Cave Collective. We're super excited to have all of you here this evening with us. And this is Brett Roes joining us tonight just to discuss the intersection of mental health and art and community, and the way that all of that kind of coalesces within our lives, and what we can do to really grow together in these journeys. So I would encourage all of you, if you have questions for Brett or for myself during the live stream, you're welcome to leave those questions in the comment section. We'll do our best to answer them as we go, or answer them at the end of our conversation, depending on where we are in the flow of the moment. We're going to give it a couple more minutes here just to let a few more people tune in. It's 6:04 right now. And so we'll just give people a few more minutes to finish up their pizza, which is what I just finished doing moments ago. And that way they can tune in and join us for this conversation. And then we'll just launch off and see where we go. Brett, did you have any intentions for this conversation as far as like specific topics you really want to hit on, or are there things that are just really on your mind right now that you'd like to share with the community? Because I'd love to get whatever input we can from you.
I tried to leave myself really open to this and not plan out every moment of it, which is rare for me. But I'm working on, one of the practices that I'm working on is figuring out how to be here in this specific moment. And I mean, that's something to talk about, because it's something that I think mental health struggles can keep us from a lot of times, or at least keep me from. And it's something that art and music and being creative has sort of helped me learn how to be here, which I guess is an answer of saying, maybe we talk about that. And also, for once in my life, I did not overly plan this. So I am open to going where we go.
I'm so excited. So I'll just to open with a tiny little story. I had never met Brett in person. We had interacted like via social media for probably a year or more, just like liking each other's posts or like snarkily commenting on the same political things. And then one day I just saw that they had listed a couch for sale on like, not even on Marketplace. It was like on your own profile, which was a little bit creepy of me. But Brett's like, hey, we got this stuff for sale. And I was like, boom, I need a couch. And so I just like showed up at Brett's house and was like, oh, I don't have any way to carry this. And so I made Brett like load this couch in my crappy old truck, and then had to do it again like a month later because the couch was part of a set of 2, and the second one came up available. And I was like, I need that one too. So anyway, now we've met officially in person, masked safely, but still, even just my small, brief interactions with Brett and their family have been really positive, not just because we have an awesome couch now, but also just the ways that I see you engage with the community, and the vulnerability and authenticity with which you present yourself has been something of an inspiration to me, and I know to a lot of other people as well. I think that your goal that you stated of being, you know, in the moment, being present, and not having to know the outcome of every specific situation is a really powerful idea. And I would love to expand on that a little bit, and the ways that you are challenging yourself with that in your daily practice. Do you have anything to offer there?
Yeah. So it's this is a new practice for me. I'm someone who has always been sort of an obsessive researcher or preparer. I'm the type who will play conversations in my head before they happen over and over again, just so I kind of feel like I know what I'm walking into. And what I found is that idea of the way things are supposed to go has really kept me from being present in the way things actually are. And in that, I miss out on a lot. And so I actually just had this moment, I think it was last week, and I got called to go out on a visit to go see an elderly person in our community. And I'd never met her before, did not know how she was connected to our church at all. And so I had no information on her or her circumstance. And so I just had to go in just being there. And it was one of the most meaningful interactions that I've ever had in my life. And I realized that there's really something to that, to being where we are. And I think, you know, part of how I do that, and I didn't know this before, honestly, before last week, but part of how I do that is through my music and writing. And it sort of just allows me to be in a space and really hone in on what I'm feeling or what I'm noticing in ways that a lot of times I'm just going too much. I'm just being too busy, or just controlling too much, I guess, to really experience it. And so that's been a real gift for me. And honestly, as cheesy as it sounds, because I am the sort of person who thinks mantras are cheesy, and yet I have them. That, you know, one of the ones that I've been using in these last couple of weeks, in those moments where I'm just trying to figure things out that I don't have the information, is just be here. Like, or when I'm getting super stressed out or anxious in my head, it's just be here, just be here. Whatever here is. And sometimes that's pretty, and sometimes, you know, that's a screaming toddler, and sometimes it's the most amazing thing, even when it is a screaming toddler. So that's been a real gift for me. It's a struggle. I still go to Google and research as much as possible. But when I do, now I'm catching myself. And I'm saying, just be here, just be here. So
yeah. How is it that I guess what sort of writing do you find yourself using to express yourself? Is it like poetry? Is it storytelling? Do you utilize like a journal of sorts? I know when we had Father Manus on here a couple of weeks ago, he had shared about keeping just a notebook with him at all times, where he was constantly putting down just recipes, thoughts, quotes that he liked, titles of songs he heard and wanted to look up later. And so what sort of writing is it that you're employing to kind of organize your mind and also free it in that way?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. It kind of depends on the season of life that I'm in. I found that music, I play the guitar and I sing. I don't do that publicly anywhere, but I'll occasionally post on Facebook, or I'll just, you know, play in my living room. And I found that for music, that really helps me feel all of the feelings that I don't sort of naturally know how to name or experience. And so when I really just need to kind of feel like what my body is feeling, I go to music every time. Um, but when I need to process, when I need to really process things, that's when I do a lot of spoken word and also creative nonfiction. I wrote a memoir a few years back now, and that was a really good experience. And I've been working on a couple others since then. And so that's a really good sort of way for me to process my life and my experiences and kind of sort my way through them and figure out who actually am I, and how do I want to exist in relationship with other people. So it's a little bit of everything, I suppose.
Yeah. There are two things that jumped out on me there that I want to double back to. First of all, what is the title of your memoir? Because we want to shamelessly plug you here and make sure that we let our listeners and our viewers know where they can get a hold of that, because I think that sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I love it. So it's called My Name is Brett, Truths from a Trans Christian. And the thing I'm gonna I'm gonna say that the thing about memoirs, or really any type of creative nonfiction, is that unless you die right after you write them, in some ways they're no longer true in the same way that they once were. So a lot has changed for me since I wrote that thing, and so it's weird now for me to go back or to even recommend it to people, because it feels so different from who I am now. But it's a really good, I guess, just sort of snapshot of who I was and who I was becoming. So
yeah, well, and probably a powerful story for anyone who's currently in that situation where they may be in the Christian faith and they don't know how to embrace their identity, or they don't even understand the first steps of how you can be a trans Christian in the first place, because there's been so much in the church in America that speaks against that. And so to find really affirming and celebratory memoirs, I think, is, even if it is something that you look at now and you're like, oh, I'm not in that place anymore, some people might be in that place, and how cool for them to find someone who's walked that journey ahead of them. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, it was a really good experience. It really came. So I was in divinity school. I was preparing to be a pastor. And one of the things that they required us to do was to go on these 2 spiritual retreats. And if you know me, I'm very intellectual. Like, there was nothing about a spiritual retreat that made me go, yes, let's do this. But I had to, so I did. And there was one that was a writing retreat. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll go to that, because I do like to write. And so I went there, and we're in this great hall on our campus, and there's probably 40 or 50 people there, most of whom I don't know. And the first question that we had to write about and then share with the group about was about the history of your name. And it was this thing that for a lot of people was really simple, right? Like, they could share, why their parents picked it out, or if it was a family name or whatever. And I was sitting there with this story of like, I chose that myself. And there's this really cool story of how it happened, but I did not know in that space if I could actually share that, and if it would be okay. And so I made something up. Excuse me. I made something up. Yeah. And I felt horrible afterward. And so I came home from it, and I just said, this is a story that people need to know, because other people need to have the space to be able to answer that question of, tell me the story about your name. And they need to be able to do it truthfully. And so that was really the only goal with that, was to just create a little bit more space. And so even if it's not perfect, or what I might wish that it was now, I think that it did begin creating more space, at least in me, and hopefully in some others as well. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think that that's true for any writing endeavor, like whether you're journaling or like, I know I look back on poetry from 3 years ago and I'm like, oh, wow, was that really me? Was that my voice? What was I trying to put forth here? Like, that's not true of me anymore. And same with my journals. You look at your journals from high school and you're like, oh my God, how did I even why did I think that was a good idea to memorialize that for all time? Like, just burn them. yeah, so I think in some ways, I mean, a memoir is obviously much more public than a journal. And so you probably have to deal with some of the people who are like, tell me about this. And you're like, actually, that's not me anymore. But
Yep.
I think people can probably relate to the idea that memoirs, like you said, are a snapshot of a specific, they end at a period in someone's life, and then the people who wrote them still grow and evolve beyond that. And so it's really cool to be here with you now and to hear the ways that memoir causes you to reflect on your personal growth. Something you said earlier was about the way that you're challenged in your relationships with other people and the way that you interact with other people. In your work, right? We talked a little bit about this before we went live, because I was like, what does a minister even do during the day? Like, especially during a pandemic, do you just go sit in an office and like read scripture? What does a minister do? Because it's always been something I've wondered, like, what do we pay the pastors for? But you answered it really well. And I was wondering if you could give like a snapshot of your day, family stuff included if you'd like, but what do you do in our community throughout the day, and where are areas that you see members of the Cave Collective community could get plugged into the work you're doing, or that you could plug into work that we're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's always this joke that pastors only work on Sundays, right? And and I always make it facetiously because that's probably the day that I work the least. But it looks different every single day, especially right now. Like in the pandemic, my job has changed. I do a lot of graphic design now. I build online worship. I record worship videos, and then there's day to day, like people walk in and need assistance, and so we've got all these resources that we can steer people toward or help them as we can, and go out on hospital visits or to nursing homes, have typical calls with people who are a part of our church, or staff meetings, and then I come home and I'm a parent, and so I pick up my kid from daycare, or from preschool, I guess, which is luckily in the basement of my church. And so it's very convenient. Pick her up, bring her home, feed her dinner, put her to bed, go to the gym, get up and do it all again, and one of the benefits, though, that I love, I mean, there are a lot of benefits to being a pastor, but one of the things that I love the most is that it changes every single day. No day is the same as the last. And it's all about pretty much everything that I do is all about meeting people where they are. And then figuring out how, in meeting folks where they are, how we can grow together. And so that's a really rich thing. And I'm just so lucky that's my job, right? Like my job is to be in relationship with people, and to help make sure that we are all becoming better and becoming ideally closer to God and each other in the process. So that's a really big gift. And of course, we have a lot of partnerships in the community. Our church is really sort of missionally active. And so we've got a lot of partnerships in the community, and I'm guessing a lot of folks who are involved with the Cave Collective are also probably involved in some of these areas that we are as well. But I mean, we're just a group of people who are trying to do our best and trying to love our neighbor. So yeah.
That's really cool. And I like the job description of, my job is just to meet people where they're at and go from there, to continue that journey together. I like the whole description, because as I said, I've always been curious, like what's a day in the life of a pastor? Have you noticed, like, I know you stated that your child's daycare is able to be like super close by, and do you feel like, since becoming a parent, how has that changed the trajectory of your day, or even your life, as you're trying to balance, because you and your partner both work, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
the first thing that comes to my mind when you ask that is I get up so much earlier. I'm a night owl, and so left to my own devices, I'm up till 3 and I sleep till 10. And And that's not the way. I might still be up till 3, but I do not get to sleep till 10 anymore. um, but I also think, on a sort of professional level, um, it shifts for me how I am a pastor and how I'm existing in the community, because um, growing up, I saw a lot of things from the church that were really quite harmful. And now that I'm sort of in that role of helping to shape this community, I want it to be a place where my kid, no matter how my kid grows, or who she becomes, I want it to be a place where she's fully welcome and fully known and fully loved.
Yeah.
And I love, one of the things I love about Canyon Lake is that that is a place that I think that can happen. And so that's a really powerful thing. But it's made me much more intentional about what kind of space are these kids growing up in, and are we as the grown-ups being the type of people that we want them to grow into. And so it's definitely made me start living life and my job and everything just a little bit more intentional than I did before.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, I know we have kids that are similar ages, both kind of in that toddler zone, which is just a crazy time to begin with, especially when you're trying to balance maintaining a relationship with your partner, for one thing, which is like, who has time for that? But then work outside of the home, right? Like the work that I put in that doesn't have to do with my children, on top of being the stay-at-home parent, is like, how is that? There's not enough time. There's never enough time for any of this. And so I have always, well, I haven't always, that would be a lie. I've recently become much more intentional about trying to take breaks, like even when I'm working on like grant applications or things like that, taking a break every hour to spend like 15 minutes of just really intentional time with them, even if that's playing like a game of Sorry, which we play probably 15 games of Sorry here a day at my house, and it gets to be a lot. But they respond really well to that time, right? And I'm sure in your evenings you find that too, that like when you're off work, the time that you have between getting off work and your child's bedtime is like really precious time that you want to protect. And whether or not you're always able to protect it when you're in a ministry position, I don't know for sure. But I think that's really important to note, that like a lot of the people that serve in outreach capacities in this community and in missional capacities in this community are also parents, and they're juggling this entire like layered aspect of like, what does it mean to like prioritize my family, but also love my community so much that like I want my energy to make a difference. That's a really hard thing to do. And so I love hearing that you're intentional about it. And you had shared with me in person and also in the biography that you had us attached to this particular conversation that you're in recovery. And I was curious if that's something that you'd like to chat about at all, or how that ties into your intentionality. If not, that's totally up to you, but I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, no, that's fair game. Pretty much everything is fair game. So I've been in the recovery community for like a decade now. Thank you. Yeah. So I got sober when I was 18, and I slipped up once for like a couple of days when I was 21, and then because all of a sudden it was legal again, and that was way too much freedom for me. But I've been sober ever since then. And it has been such a huge piece of shaping who I am. Just recognizing my own sort of, I don't want to say brokenness, but like my own sort of struggles and my imperfections, right? And just knowing that I'm not going to be perfect all the time, and figuring out, but that doesn't mean that I can't progress. That doesn't mean that I can't get better. That doesn't mean that I can't go and make amends. The biggest thing I think for me is just the emphasis on gratitude. I was really lucky. That was in my community, my recovery community. That was the primary focus was on gratitude, and on doing the thing that's right in front of you. and which goes back to that being here. And, and you know, I end every day with a gratitude list. I've been doing that for years. And it's just been this really good gift of like, even on the days that are the hardest, I have to, it's part of who I am now. I have to find 3 things to be grateful for. And it really shifts the way, it just shifts the way that I exist in the world, because I'm always on the lookout now. Not just for what's going wrong or for the catastrophe that could be happening, which is sort of my natural inclination, but also where's the joy, and what am I grateful for? And that has been one of the most life-giving things, most life-giving things for me. And yes, I think all of that sort of feeds into living intentionally as well. You know, I have to, both because of recovery and because of mental health, I have to be really intentional about the way I live. It's a slippery slope if I don't. And so I have to make sure that I am hanging around the people I want to hang around in, that I'm going to the places, you know, that are good for me, that I am working out every day, that I'm, you know, drinking more water than I am coffee, which is really hard. I'm drinking coffee right now, so I shouldn't even mention it. But, but you know, all of these sort of things that I do have to be really intentional about, so that I can stay healthy in my recovery, both from substance and in mental health. Yeah.
I think thank you for sharing that story. I don't have nearly as long in the recovery community as you do, but I've been sober for about 2.5 years now, and it's really changed my, you know, I struggled for a long time just because I didn't realize it was a problem. I assumed everyone was doing the same thing. And when I learned that, no, not everyone's getting blackout drunk every night of the week, I was like, oh, maybe I should change this and like actually remember my children's childhoods. That would be nice. And it has caused me to be really intentional. And sometimes the things that I'm grateful for at the end of the day, because I try and do that same mental practice, or even just jotting notes down in my journal. But sometimes the things that I'm grateful for are like really bad art, or like the rain that came down and ruined all of our protest signs, or, you know, like silly things, but moments that like stick out and make me realize like I'm here, I'm alive, and like relatively speaking, I have an incredibly beautiful life to be grateful for, right? And so having that practice just really does reinforce the fact that like I have a lot to live for, I have a lot to be sober for, and I'm really grateful to even be on this journey with people like yourself and others in the recovery community. And that's something that, you know, the Cave Collective is so intentional about doing programming that promotes our dry, sober venue, right? And that's something that I think we struggle with right now in this community, is that a lot of our hangout spots, or a lot of our activities where people can go hang out, it always promotes the sale of alcohol, or it's always centered around the idea of alcohol. And we want to move towards a society that doesn't cast a spotlight on the substance. Like, we want the spotlight to be on the actual substance of the event, not on alcohol, right? And so it's been so cool to see the community kind of rally around that and be able to promote these events with the knowledge that people are going to come and they're going to engage and they're going to make memories, right? And they're going to be their true selves, even if their true selves take a while to come out of the shell because they don't have social lubricant. We want to encourage that. We want that sort of authenticity. And I think that's something that you do a really good job of bringing to your community as well. As you're like traveling throughout your day, or even when you started at your church, what did you experience pushback because you're trans at all, or was that a big hurdle for you, or were people just like, welcome, like, come on in? What sort of experience out there?
So we'll back up a little bit, if that's okay. And before I even moved here, I was in a relationship with my now spouse. And so I would come back here for visits, but I was still living in North Carolina. And so I came back for a visit one time, and we drove by this church, and it had little rainbow people on the sign. And I was like, either they don't know what they're doing or they do, and that's a church that I'm interested in. And so because I'm me, I sent him an email, and I
Yeah.
said, before I walk into your church, like, I'm looking for a church, and before I walk into your church, I need to know if you mean this. And they said that they did. And so I started going to my church before I was a pastor. I started,
Okay.
just attending regularly. Then I was on staff, and then I became a pastor. And so it's been a long journey with them. And of course, there's been some pushback, because in no community, nowhere are we ever going to find a group of people who all believe the same thing, right? There's always going to be differences, and of course, people have believed different things, and of course, there have been hard moments, but by and large, it's really, really been a resounding yes. Like, yes, you are welcome here, and you are good and beloved, and that far, far outweighs those little speed bumps along the way. And so I've been really, just really lucky and really grateful to have a community who has come around me so well. In my denomination, you technically cannot be gay or lesbian and be a pastor. And so I went into this thinking that I was going to have to be, closeted within my church life for the rest of my life or lose my job. And then I realized, and I actually realized this before I became a pastor, but then I realized that was just something that I was unwilling to do. I had worked so hard to get to that point, kind of what you were talking about. When I gave up alcohol, I worked really, really hard to get to that point where I could crack the shell and just be authentic, just be willing to be vulnerable without any of that, that assistance of other things, like just do it, right?
Yeah.
Just finally finding that courage to sort of place myself in other people's hands and hope that they don't squish me. And and so I decided that it was a risk, but that I just wasn't going to go back. And I'm still to this day really unwilling to go back. And so I'm really grateful that right now I'm in a place that has just loved me so well and has welcomed me, and has welcomed a lot of my queer siblings too. I mean, we've got a lot of folks in our church, and it's just been really good and really hopeful to see. And it's something that I really haven't seen modeled that often by other churches that I've been a part of.
Yeah. Brett, are you comfortable sharing for our viewers which church it is that you're a pastor of?
Yeah, so I'm a pastor at Canyon Lake United Methodist Church.
Thank you. I had a question pop up for that, and I knew the answer, but wanted to make sure that I gave you opportunity.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you found that within your church community. That's super exciting to me, and in an area like this, kind of unexpected and like a really happy and welcome slap in the face for me, because I know that, as someone who serves on the board of directors with the Cave Collective, I don't like go around just spewing religious or spiritual advice to a lot of the youth that I work with. But sometimes I have youth that approach me and they ask, like, where is an affirming community, or where is an affirming church community in Rapid City? Like, where can I go where I'm not going to be glared at? I'm not going to be given those angry looks. I'm not going to be judged or whatever. And I always direct them to your church, to St. Andrew's Episcopal, because I know both of you, right? I know Father Manus, I know you, and I know your hearts, and I know that you would never fail to celebrate and affirm one of our queer siblings. And so I love that about you. And like I said, with the Cave Collective, I'm not at all a spiritual organization, but I'm super happy to be able to direct people in your way when they have those questions and when they're looking for that sort of community. It's awesome to know that we have people of faith in this town that are looking out for our queer community as well, because that hasn't always been the case here, and it's cool to see it happening. So
thank you.
Yeah, you've mentioned working out a few times while we've been in here, and I happen to know that your partner is pretty involved in working out as well. And you mentioned it kind of as part of your routine, right? That helps you maintain your intentionality and maintain your mental health. Would you be willing to explore at all kind of the correlation that you see between your fitness journey and mental health, and where that started and where it's taken you?
Yeah. So it started, I grew up an athlete. I played pretty much all sports. I only played soccer for like 1 year because I didn't have the attention span for that. But I was really into basketball and swimming. And when I was in high school, I was actually I was a long distance butterfly swimmer, and I was supposed to be going to college for swimming. And I hurt my shoulder. And so my
Mm,
junior and senior year of high school, I had 2 shoulder surgeries, and was never able to swim again. And so for the longest time, I just sort of gave up physical activity because I wasn't able to do the one thing that I really wanted to do. And and part of it, part of my journey back into athletics was with recovery and
mm.
simply simply needing to fill up some time in my day, because
Yep, I
I
can
couldn't be
relate.
drinking, and so I had to be doing something.
Yep.
And so that's kind of where it started. And then, I moved back here, and after div school, I my grad school, I was I was just not I was not very physically active. I was not very intentional with the food I was eating. I was not really doing anything. And then my wife uh, was jacked, right? Like, she's very, very strong, and really, just really quite an impressive human all the way around. But she was really strong and really prioritized being intentional with the gym and with food. And what I found is that when I ate less sugar and when I moved my body more, I was so much less anxious than I was before. And so, pretty much starting in 2016, weightlifting specifically just became this habit for me. I've had some moments kind of on and off with it, but I'm back in it now, and it just feels really good. And I think there's something to, when you're lifting weights, you have to, like, you don't have to, but you focus on the muscles that you're moving. And
Mhm.
so it's like there's everything else that's going on around me, and a lot of times, that's what's making me anxious, is all of this stuff and figuring out what I'm going to do with it and how I fit into it. And my time at the gym is this time where I can just focus on my bicep, right? Feel and just feel my body move. And it's this really powerful thing of, like, reminding myself to connect with my body, to spend time physically with myself, that I don't otherwise do, or that I struggle with otherwise. And so it's been good, mentally, partly because of just physical movement, but also because it has shown me that my body is capable, that it is good, that I've become more at peace with my physical self, um, and it's just been awesome. So, I don't always want to do it, but I feel better afterward when I do.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's a really awesome recognition that, like, when you're working out, you're spending time with yourself, right? I haven't been very good about my own physical fitness journey lately, but when I am intentional about it, I do tend to feel that I'm more in tune with myself and more able to manage obstacles throughout the day as they arise, because I've spent that time with myself. Um, so I want to loop back a little bit, if you're willing, to what you talked about earlier with, like, being a living room musician and playing music and writing music of your own. And the fact that you don't really do it publicly, but you're also kind of willing to put yourself out there on the internet. So, like, what is it that you're looking for when you're expressing yourself through music, or what is it that you find most useful about that particular artistic outlet?
Yeah. So I have a really hard time, um, identifying and naming the emotions that I'm feeling. I'm getting better at it, but it's been a really long journey for me. And part of that is a trauma response, and part of it I think is just how I'm wired. But feelings are hard for me, and what I've found that playing music does is, even if it's not my own, right? Even if I'm playing someone else's song for me, is it lets me feel in a way that I just do not know how to let myself feel otherwise. And so it's just this, I may not be naming the emotions, but it's this moment of letting myself feel them and not trying to push them down anymore. And I think that that's partly why I like to stick to my living room, because it is this really vulnerable thing, for me. And so part of why I can post videos on the internet is because people aren't staring at me while I'm doing it. And occasionally they're like, "Oh, your voice sounds good," and I get a little boost. But right, but it's this really vulnerable thing for me, even if it's not music that I wrote. So yeah.
Is it guitar that you're playing primarily, or do you play more than one instrument?
Just the guitar. Just the guitar.
You play guitar. Yeah. How long has that instrument been a part of your life?
Yeah. Since I was young, I think upper elementary school. So my family, like my mom's really young, and my grandparents are young, and then my great grandparents are pretty young too. And so I knew all of my great grandparents, until I was quite old. And so one of my great grandmas, she used to play the guitar, and they would like, because they were farmers, so they'd have like horse racing on the TV or something, and she'd just be sitting over there like plucking her guitar, and I was always more interested in that. And so when she died, she wanted to give me her guitar. And so the first guitar that I ever got was from my great grandma, and I still have it. I can't play it. It's all kinds of busted, but it still hangs on my wall as this reminder of this is where I've come from. And so I just started teaching myself how to play. And I think, total in my life, I've taken one guitar lesson, and I didn't like it.
So you're a pro, is what you're saying.
I'm a pro, absolutely, yes. I didn't like it. I don't know what it was, but I didn't like the structure of it. And so I was just like, I'll figure it out myself. And so I'm not the best, but I can strum it. I can strum a few chords. So yeah.
That's really cool. And I think that's important to recognize that, like, some of us, like I shared earlier with you, that I don't have artistic or musical talent, right? Like I'm not someone that can put something down with paint and have it look like anything other than that. I'm not a painter. I'm not someone who can sketch. Like I can make a stick figure, but my 5-year-old can do better. And I'm not someone who can play instruments, and I never have been. And a lot of it has to do with my patience and my self-esteem. I think I kind of ran into the same thing that you referenced, where I took lessons for a few different instruments, but never stuck with it because it didn't appeal to me, or I didn't have patience with the teacher. And I just thought, if I don't get this on the first try, I must be failing. So I suck. But music, for me, music is incredibly, like, it's part of my being. And that's why I love the Cape Collective so much, is like, I want to be at the shows. I want to be part of this community because I believe in the power of music, because I see how it plays out throughout my day. Like if I'm really struggling and I turn on a certain song, it can really empower me, or it can really calm me down, or it can bring me up from when I'm having kind of a depressive spiral and things like that. And so I fully see and believe in that power of the music. And I think that it's important to recognize that we have people all around us who, they might not be the pros, right? They might not be the people that you see up on the stage performing for money, but they use music as a creative expression, or as a creative outlet, or a way of expression that allows them to process the world more healthily. And like, that's something to be encouraged. And I think that that's why it's always such a cool experience, like, you know, for open mic nights and things like that. You might see people who aren't the most talented or have the most experience on their instrument, but they're really into what they're doing, and they're being really vulnerable to share, you know, a song that they just wrote, or to try something new for the first time, and to express themselves in that way. And I love that about our Cave Collective community, is like, it's a place where people come and they might not have all of it figured out yet. They might not be ready to, you know, headline at a show, or even willing to, but they use music as a way to connect with themselves and to connect with the world. And that in itself holds power. So I'm happy to hear that you pursue it in that way as well, even though I'd love to be like, well, go get your guitar right now and play us a song, Brett. I don't think you're probably going to do that.
Don't think that thought didn't cross my mind. I was thinking, I was like, Mary's going to ask me to do this.
Oh, well, I mean, you were planning it. Were you practicing all day? Were you just...
Yes, I practiced all day.
Yeah, called in sick to work, the whole thing.
Exactly.
Oh, no, we won't make you do that. We might make you come to an open mic night at the Cave sometime, or even just let us share one of your videos on our social media so that people can know that you're talented. So we'll
I can deal with that.
Do you find, so you mentioned that, like, naming and identifying emotions is sometimes just a challenge for you. And has that been true your whole life? Is it something even as a kid that you remember just kind of having a hard time communicating emotionally or connecting that way?
Yes and no. So for a long time, yes, but it's partly a sort of learned thing. I grew up in a space. Well, first, let me be clear. My mom is amazing, and I love her. So, Mom, if you're watching this, this is not about you, and you know that. But I grew up in a space. Thank you. I grew up in a space where it just wasn't safe to have and to express emotions, and so unless they were, everything is fine. Everything is fine. And so beyond that, what I got really good at was pushing them down, avoiding them, trying to do anything but feel them. And so it's been a journey to really sort of go back and have to sort of sort through, you know, what are those things that have kept me from feeling all the things that I am feeling. My body knows that I'm feeling them. I just don't know how to acknowledge it. I don't know how to live into it. And so, or I didn't. And so, yeah. So, I mean, when I was little, of course I had feelings, you know, everybody does, but I learned to not show them. And so it's a process of relearning that I am going through and right now, and have been for the last few years. And it's been a gift, and it's been hard, and it's been terrible and amazing all at the same time. So
yeah, and it's scary, right? It's scary to learn yourself in new ways, or in ways that you're closed off to, or blinded, blind to. That's cool though, that you're open to exploring it, even if it is still an ongoing journey. There was one thing that I wanted to ask you about, and that's you're tattooed. You have a lot of ink going on, and like some of it's visible. I covered mine up. It's nothing like yours, but I was cold in the basement. So
that's so fair.
If you had to, like, consider your mental health journey, your journey with various art expressions, and then the way that you've expressed yourself through ink on your body, is there a connection that you see there, or is there a story you'd like to tell regarding any of your tattoos or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. So I'll just be honest. Some of my tattoos have very little meaning whatsoever. Some of them I was just like, this is pretty, and so it's on my body. But some of them, some of them carry a lot of weight for me. Like the first tattoo I ever got, it's on my wrist, and it says agape, which is the Greek word for love. One of the Greek words for love that's used in the Bible. It's most commonly used about God's love for humanity. It's this sort of like all-encompassing radical love that that is just beyond my imagination. But anyway, and so when I was a swimmer in high school, I would write it on my wrist. so that when I would go down on the starting blocks, it would be the last thing that I would see before I took off into the pool. And so that was the first thing I got tattooed on me. My my stepdad said, you know, when you go to college, if you get a tattoo or whatever, we're gonna stop helping you pay for it. Like, you're all on your own, whatever. And
Oh,
so
no.
so because I am me, one of the first things I did when I went to college was I got a tattoo just to see if they were being, you know, truthful. And so so that was the first one I got, and it holds a lot of meaning for me. But then, you know, I've got a lot over here about writing, a lot of writing stuff, a cool little typewriter over here. And this is you can't really see it super well, but it's actually the doors to the first church that ever really felt like home for me. It was the first church that it's in Des Moines, Iowa. If anyone's from there, it's Trinity Las Americas United Methodist Church, and it's a bilingual congregation. And so we had all kinds of folks there, you know, very conservative folks to very progressive folks, and it was just this place where everyone had a space, and they got to see me come. You know, they saw me come out the many times that I came out, and they were with me through it, and they let me preach there. You know, they did all kinds of amazing stuff, and so that's one of my favorites as well. Moving away from them was one of the hardest things I ever did, so now I get to carry a little bit of them with me. So
That's a great story, and what a cool and unexpected place to find a community like that, especially during the beginning of your journey coming out and everything like that. That is really, really cool.
Yeah.
I did have one question pop up here on the feed about your seminary. Did you go to seminary, or what school did you go to?
Yeah, I did. So, well, I went to Duke University. They've got a divinity school there, and it's, you know, it's United Methodist affiliated over in North Carolina, and it was really good. For some reason, a lot of the people from my undergrad also went to Duke, and so I got to go. I got to go to grad school with my best friends, and it was it was one of the hardest couple of years of my life, and one of the most fun as well. And then I'm still in school now as well, getting a Master of Divinity. And so I go to Sioux Falls Seminary now, which is a little bit different, but is much more conducive to being a parent and working full time than, you know,
Sure.
moving back to North Carolina. So
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool that you're continuing that education and that development for yourself. That's exciting. I guess we're moving toward the end of this hour, and I want to make sure that we give you time to express anything that you had on your mind or heart, and also if you'd like to share anything regarding your congregation or other outreaches that you're involved with, and information about how to contact those organizations or attend a service or things like that. Now would be a great time for you to throw that information out there, and then we can recap it also on the comment section, and then with our on our YouTube channel later, so that people know how they're able to join any of these communities and these outreach parts of your ministry that you've mentioned. So
yeah. So I mean, I guess what comes to mind when we say, you know, is there anything else I'd want to say? It's just tell your truth. However you need to tell your truth, tell it. It is the scariest thing that you can ever do, and it is also the most liberating thing. And I can almost guarantee that there will be, like, no matter what it is, I can almost guarantee that there will be people in your life who will receive you in your fullness. And if there aren't, you can contact me. My name is Brett Roes, and I will do that. I will receive you. Yeah, we worship online or in person at 8:30 and 10:45 in the morning on Sundays. 8:30 is our sort of traditional service with hymns. 10:45, we've got a worship band. I went back to the 80s there for a second with the praise band thing. And yeah, you know, we've got all kinds of good stuff going on right now. We're about to launch an online community so that people can share their prayer requests and just really be in community with each other on the go. all the time. And so I'm really excited about that. And we've got a young adult gathering that's happening this Friday as well. We're going to just have some walking tacos and yard games and just hang out and get to know each other. So that's from 6 to 8 p.m. on Friday. So I'd love to have some folks come and hang out with us for a little bit.
Yeah. And those are events that happen at Canyon Lake United Methodist Church.
Yeah. So the young adult thing. Yep. 3,500 Canyon Lake Drive. And yeah, and you can find more too on our website. It's clumc.com. So, and also just thanks. Thank you so much for having me and letting me hang out for a little while. This is awesome.
It's super awesome. And look, our kids didn't even bother us a single bit. Before we went live, Brett and I were both like, okay, fingers crossed, because we've got the toddlers here. Like, hopefully they don't run in and jump on us in the middle of this. So kudos to the babies, right?
Right. They're the real MVPs here.
Yeah. It's been super fun having you here, and I'm really excited that we got the opportunity to do this. So thank you for carving out an hour of your time just to connect with us and connect with our community. I look forward to getting some feedback from the community on this. Like I said, a lot of times, even after we have these live streams, our content is uploaded to YouTube, and a lot of times people will contact me with questions after the fact, and they'll be asking certain questions about our interactions. And so if I get any questions for you, I'll make sure and forward them to you. And we'd love to have your involvement further as we continue to move toward our opening date at the Cave Collective and talk about ways that we can network and collaborate to really build a strong community here and focus on the fact that the expression of ourselves through art is such a powerful thing, and it can really serve to help our mental health and our all-around health also. And so I just want to let everyone know that we are continuing to have this series so next Tuesday you can join me, and one of my youth leadership committee members is going to be with me next week. Her name is Claire Bernard, and she's going to be hosting a conversation with Reagan Solomon, who is someone I've known since she was like 6 years old, and I love this girl. She is going to talk about how she navigates her bipolar diagnosis through the expression of her art and through just the way that she lives her life. And so I'm really excited for that conversation. I think it's going to be another really authentic, really vulnerable, really just a real conversation with a real person in our community about how they use art to lead themselves through their mental health journey. And so really excited for that conversation with Reagan. It's going to be next week, Tuesday, same time, 6 p.m. And again, you'll get to meet one of our youth leadership committee members that night as well. We're super excited to have her involvement. Brett, again, thank you for joining us, and thank you to your wife for hanging out with the kids so that you're able to do this. I know that your family time in the evening is really a sacred time, and so I want to just really express our gratitude for offering what you did this evening and making time for us, because we really appreciate it. And got a lot of thank yous here in the comments just from people. Someone even from your church apparently says you're a very inspiring pastor. So there you go.
Thanks, y'all.
That was your bump for the evening. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up here because it is 7 o'clock, and we're going to let Brett get some time with his family. So again, thank you all for joining us. You'll be able to view this video, this live stream on our YouTube channel once we get it uploaded there. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us through Messenger on Facebook, or you can also email us at cavecollectivercsd@gmail.com. So thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.